Hello, today we are going to talk about the scenes in our projects. Scenes are very important. As you can see, we are already in the scene 1. There can't be any project without the scene because we have to add some files onto the scene. So we have to have at least one scene. As the project grows and it's getting bigger and bigger, we would probably get some more scenes to manage it, because it would be hard to have hundreds of files in one scene. So for example, why would we use multiple scenes? Let's say that your game consists of the main menu, of some settings, of gameplay, of game over menu, and so on. Maybe if the game is really simple and small, you might do all of those stuff in one scene. You can do it, no problem. So once your project gets more complex, you probably want to get those elements on separate scenes. And if you're building some game where you have, for example, outdoor space and many buildings that you can enter, then probably you want to create every building that you enter on the separate scene. Okay, so you know why and when you would like to use the scenes. Let's create it. I will create two scenes, but it would be easier if we just get one scene done and then just duplicate. I've got scene 1. Let's create some scenes manager. I create empty and call it scenes manager object. And now I create some script that will manage our scenes. So I'll call it scenes manager. Don't call it scene manager. That's not a good idea to do so. There are a few keywords or special names that we can't really use because the system, the Unity, will get confused if those names are used by some libraries, and the scene manager is one of it. So don't call the script this name. And okay, so let's just attach it to our scene manager object and open it so we can do some stuff. In order to use scenes, we need to add a library. So just type using Unity engine, and then after the dot, we will use scene management. Semicolon at the end. Now we are ready to do some stuff from that class. And first of all, let's display maybe scene name and scene index, because those two infos are quite important. You might manage scenes with the names or with the build index. And where can you find build index? It is in the file and then build settings. And here is a section scenes in build. So here you have to add all the scenes that you want to switch between or to be packed with your game. At the moment we've got only one, so let it live as it is, but as you can see there is some index on the right side. So we can manage scenes with indexes as they are put in here as scenes in build, or we can manage them with the name, like the scene 1 name. I prefer to do it with the build index, but I will show you how to do it in both ways. So let's open the script, and at the beginning we want to display those infos. Let's do it in the text field. So let's just go back and create text field, UI and text. I will just change some settings, choose the camera and choose scale with screen size. I will put 920 and 180. Now with our text, I will just expand it, maybe a bit to the side. I will increase the size of it and change it to something brighter. And this text will be text scene name, and I will duplicate it, put it a bit lower, and I will call it scene index, like so. Now we have to make a reference to those components. So let's go back to our script and make serialize field of type text. But because this is UI element, we need to add a library in order to use it. Start typing using Unity engine, and after the dot just choose UI. Now we can use the text and call it text, and maybe we can call it scene name, and beneath we'll do exact the same thing, but just instead of scene name we'll call it scene index. Save it, and now in the start method we want to assign a proper info and display it in those fields. So takes the scene name and assign special method that will display the name of this scene, which is scene manager. Now let's get a method that will show us active scene. So get active scene, use parentheses, and after it just add dot and choose whether it's a build index or the name. So let's put a name first, and I will duplicate it. And of course we were referencing the component, but we have to get into the text field, of course, in order to display it. The same thing applies here, and we have to change the scene name to scene index. Now we don't want to get the name, but build index. And of course the build index will return integer, and we can't just display an integer into the text field. We have to change it or parse it into the string. So just dot and to string method. Save it, go back to Unity, and now we have to attach those fields references to our script. So click on it and just drag and drop it. I will save it and press play to see what we will get, and we've got scene 1 because this is the name of it, and index 0. So we just learn how to use concatenation. So let's create a concatenation so we know what we are displaying. So before we display the name of the scene, let's just add some string, scene name, concatenate by using the concatenation operator, and do the same thing beneath. So it will be scene index. When we are using concatenation, you don't really have to parse your numbers into strings anymore, because the parser will do it on its own. So we can delete this part now, and it should be working fine. So let's go back to Unity, press play again and see how it's being done. Scene name, scene 1, and scene index is 0. It is working, which is good. So in order to switch between the scenes, we need to add some buttons. So let's just right click UI and choose button. Expand it. I will call it open scene 1 and increase the size of it and just duplicate it, put it below. And we will call this one just open scene 2. Now we have to create a special method that will just open those scenes. So go back to the script. We're not going to use update, so just delete it. And we have to make our method public so that we can get it from the inspector. So public void, and let's call it open scene 1. And here we use scene manager. After the dot, we will just use load scene method, and inside we can use either the scene name or the build index. I prefer to use build index, so the scene 1 will have index of 0, so just put 0. And beneath we create another method that will open the scene 2. Select it all and use Shift Alt down to duplicate it and change the name of it to open scene 2. And of course we need to change the index to 1 because the next index will be 1. So our script is pretty much done. Let's go back to Unity, and we have to add those methods to our buttons. So with the scene 1, let's go down and click plus button. Now we have to add the object that the script is attached to. Choose the script and then open scene 1 method. With the second one, do the same thing, just use different method, of course. So scene manager and open scene 2. Save it. And I think this is pretty much done. Let me just play it. And okay, if we press on scene 2, we will get an error, of course, because we have to create the other scene and add it to the build. Click on the scene one and we can choose edit and then duplicate. So as you can see, when we duplicated it, it added number 2 to the name straight away. Just save it and I will open the scene 2 and it looks exactly the same. Maybe let's change the background of it so it changes at least a bit. Save it and let me just have a look if all references are set with our buttons as well. Yes, everything is set. So this is looking fine. Just go to File, Build Settings, and here we've got only scene 1. So we have to add the other scene as well and close it. So now if we just press play, we are in the scene 2 at the moment. So just open scene 1 and as you can see we were switched to the first scene. And now we can just switch between the scenes. And this is how you're going to build your scenes as well. Of course, if you build some menu, then you would switch by the buttons probably. But if you want to switch within the game, then probably you just make some special methods so that they will switch between the scenes whenever, I don't know, you enter some building or you get killed or whatever. It's totally up to you. But the main thing to remember is that probably the best thing to manage the scenes is to use the scene index, and you just load some scene by putting scene manager, then load scene and then index number.